We'll just wait for 30 more seconds to a minute, and we'll get started. All right. Apologies for the delay, and we'll just wait for the last couple of straddlers to come along. Okay. Okay. Let's make a start. Good morning, everyone, wherever you may be in the world. It's a lovely morning. It's here in the Philippines. It's nearly 31 degrees at 7 a.m. in the morning. Fantastic day to get started. So look, I appreciate everyone taking their time to join this session. I hope you do find it useful to some extent, and you do come away with some knowledge that's going to help you and your team to, I guess, better themselves to some extent in the world of sales. So look, without further ado, let's make a start. Now, I've sort of been around for the last 17 years, 16 years in the sales world, managing several teams and working across multiple organizations, running my own company. So let me go into more detail on that in a little bit. But I guess one question that I've asked myself over the years and the 16 years of what I've been doing, the 7 years of those managing sales teams and running my own company, is what is it that makes great salespeople? Why are some salespeople average? They may hit their number or just underachieve their number and they're happy with that. But then you get that one or two unique individual within a team of 10 or 20 that just absolutely smashes their number, is just no one can hit that level, right? And I do wonder what it is, and is it something that I've personally experience and what is it that makes those individuals give them that drive and tenacity, I guess. But look, let's make a start. But before we get into that, I want to give you guys a bit of an introduction. So let's look at what we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover a bit of an introduction on who I am, where I've come from, my history very briefly, and then we're going to go on to the main event. We're going to talk about distinguishing between an average versus good salesperson. We're also going to look at the types of sales people as well, right? That's really important. The types of sales individuals that you're going to come across in sales organizations. Without being too stereotypical, there is a certain structure that most companies follow. They're going to look at the qualities of a seasoned field reps, and then we're going to look at what you as leaders can provide. What tips can you provide to help your field sales reps and turn them into highly strategic machines, right? Then we'll do a bit of a Q&A session for anyone who wants to ask any questions. Okay, moving on. So who am I? So 17 years ago, back in London, I started my first job as a B2B lead generator. It's actually one of my strongest memories was entering the sales world with my boss slamming a list of phone numbers down on my desk. And that might be a little bit sort of old school. It was more of a computer list of phone numbers and telling me to make some calls and making some money now. A little bit dramatic. It was a bit hardcore. It was kind of like a milder version of the Wolf of Wall Street. But it soon got me started. I'll tell you that now. So look, 6 months later, I was making more money than I could count. After my first month, I made a ton of money, more than I've ever made in my life, straight after uni, having a bit of debt, to making, close to £6,000-7,000 a month. It was amazing. I felt like a rock star. I kind of felt like that individual within Wolf of Wall Street to some extent, right? Like I said, on a milder scale in London, right? So I guess what that taught me is I guess it helped me to become an expert in what I do, to suck up the long hours, 100+ dials a day. I was hungry to succeed. There were long hours. Within 6 months, I moved into the sales arm of the business, working as a senior ISR. So I moved from a teddy prospector to a full-on internal sales rep within 6 months, due to the ability in my So guys, just give me a second. I've just got a couple of others joining us, and I'm just going to make sure they're muted. It's a bit of interference. Okay, we're back on. So, look, I made 100 plus calls a day. Just to recap that, I met my hourly and daily goals. So I did it by the hour. I focused on the job at hand with minimal distractions, turning Outlook off and that sort of stuff, telling people to bugger off when I was working, learned how to handle myself in highly competitive environments. And after 2 years in the trenches, I decided to embark on my next move, which was moving over to another country. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to find somewhere a bit nicer and warmer to live. From the UK, it's not that bad, but it was a bit cold, the best of times, a bit drizzly. But I wanted to take that experience that I learned down in the trenches and move it somewhere that maybe was a little bit tamer, and where I could, I guess, prosper to some extent, right? So moving on to the next slide. So what the trenches taught me is that you need to be extremely strategic and extremely hardworking in a dog world. In London, I just felt like the next person above me just wanted to take a dump on my head. I say it in the nicest way possible. I just felt like that person was ready to push me off a cliff, and that's what taught me to jump straight up above them, right? I know that sort of dump on the head scene sounds a bit strange, but if you remember that Hiraki thing, which I'm sure you've all seen, of the birds all taking a poop on everyone's head, with the top guy being the CEO and the bottom guy being the janitor, that's kind of how it was, right? So for me, I wanted to make sure I was always ahead of everyone else. Just that competitiveness strove out of me. Okay, so I was able to successfully embark on my next challenge in Australia. Again, taking my experience there and wanting to I guess bring the streetwise that I took from London into somewhere very different. What I learned about Australia though wasn't the same. Very different place, very finite market. If you bugger off or if you annoy someone, if you annoy someone, you'll and give someone a bad experience in terms of your services and what you do, they'll remember you, and you'll probably be heard about at the next barbecue, right, with all the other IT executives, and you've got to be careful because you can really burn relationships very fast there. But at the same time, Australia is built on trust. So if you do the right thing and people trust you, as I found out over the years, you'll be referred on to other clients and other potential clients and that sort of stuff. But very different kettle of fish. So I learned to adapt to my new environment across different cultures and languages. Including the business language, which is key wherever you are in the world. Down in the trenches, door knocking, sales experience combined with the ability to adapt to a new environment, it's to help you to thrive, right? Especially in a place like Australia, which is a wonderful and fantastic place for business. Look, as I mentioned before, it took me 6 to 12 months to work out Australia had a more relaxed culture. I went through my own challenges and experiences. I actually started off with some smaller companies that brought me into Australia and helped me out with visas and that sort of stuff. But then I had to manage some challenges head on. Within my first year of employment, I was made redundant on a 457 visa, which is never fun. And you're given a 30-day notice to go back to your home country. I wasn't quite keen on that. So I quickly put my foot down. And again, coming back from that experience, and again, the stories I'm trying to tell you is what is it I've done throughout my life in this quick introduction before we start the main event that's helped me to get through some of my challenges and some of my issues. All right. So going back to the issue with the visa, right? I quickly called up a lot of my friends in the industry. I got them to connect me. I looked at my network. I applied for jobs. I treated finding a job like it was a 10-hour day session, right? Like it was a full-time job to find a full-time job, and I needed someone to take on my sponsorship, which isn't a cheap thing to do as well. So it took me a while. It took me a good month, and I ran very low on finances, but I got that next role, and I moved into into recruitment. Essentially, was where I went to after that. After a few years in that space, I then moved into some of the larger companies in the world, as you can see, Oracle there, American Express, trained some teams over there, and gained even more experience. I wanted to actually take that experience of working for smaller companies, small to medium companies, which I'd only had experience in, and I wanted to take that into a larger organization, which was actually quite challenging because the good thing about large companies like Oracle is they provide you training, structure, they spoon feed you the way it should be done. Here's the Kool-Aid, now get on with it, right? And here's all the resources and stuff and people and all that sort of stuff. So you kind of handheld a lot of the way, but I wanted to learn how these large companies work. How does the finance, HR, marketing work of these companies? How are they siloed? How do the sales team structured? How do they hire? What are the team? All that sort of stuff that I wanted to learn so I could take the streetwiders, combine them together, and eventually one day set up my own company, right? So after 6 years in the corporate world doing that, with some of the world's largest companies and working with some of the greatest salespeople I've ever worked with on this planet, I then decided to move on to my next challenge. which was over in Southeast Asia of all places, to the Philippines, a place that's been growing and booming for the last 10 to 15 years, more for the last 20 years, even though we're in COVID-19. Things are a little bit difficult, and that things have slowed here. And we have had 29 years of straight growth out here in the Philippines, so not really complaining about it. So what I wanted to do was bring the best of the UK, the best of Australia. So bring in that hardcore London-based mild Wolf of Wall Street mentality, bring in that Australian kind of mildness, but relationship building techniques, and combine them together with my experience of what I've learned in the small and the large organizational space, in the corporate space, and set up a business out in the Philippines, and take away that terrible reputation that the Philippines did have with, paying people minimum wage and getting the cheapest staff and the worst staff on the phones because they're cheap. I wanted to create a team of people that were experts at what they did, and were the best of the best, and they were trained by the best as well. So that's what I did. I built up a team in Manila. So we got a company targeting medium to large enterprise companies. It was time to compete with the rest of the Western world. I don't want to compete. My competitors are not in the Philippines. I want my competitors to be in Australia, right, in the Western world. That's who I want to be competing with, and that is exactly who we do compete with the guys that we have on our team. So over the last 5 years, like I said, we built up a team of 10 people. We don't have that many people now because we've scaled down a bit, as most small companies have, to deal with the issues of COVID, and some of the drop in work. But look, even if with this pandemic, we still continue to drive forwards. Okay, and that's really important. We may not be growing, but we're sustaining ourselves very well in this difficult market. Okay, so I'm very happy with where we've come so far. All right, I even wrote a book. Sorry, that is a terrible photo, and I really need to get that redone. I don't know, well, maybe I had a big night the night before. Anyway, I've got a book. So if you're interested in learning that story and where I came from and some of the things I did, I'll send you all a free copy of my ebook at the end of this session. Some of you already have this already. And alternatively, if anyone wants a copy, let me know. Deliveries are a bit of a pain at the moment, but I'll see what I can do. If not, you can always buy it on Amazon. I think it's like $5-6. It's not that expensive. But yeah, that's more on the story of what I've just told you now, and what I did and how it got me to where I was today. So that I wanted to give you all a bit of an introduction to me, because I think that's really, really important. Because I just want to show you where I've come. I'm not saying I'm the best sales rep out there. I've got a lot of learning to do, and I will continue to learn for the rest of my life. I'm a very bad listener, and good salespeople are not bad listeners, right? So for me, I'm constantly learning on that skill, okay? But that story I want to show you, someone that came from zero experience to where I am today, to sucking up everything that's going on at the moment, to letting staff go, going for that heartbreaking decision of moving across the other side of the world, setting up a company, not taking a salary for a year, all those things that I think that come with just having that tenacity and learnings, and having that, I guess, internal strength to just cope with pretty much anything, to know that you've got to provide food on the table as an employer, as a business owner or an employee, okay? Okay, so let's move on to the main event. So what is it that makes great salespeople so successful? Let's look into this further. So I've already given you a bit of an idea on my story. I was terrified when I entered the sales, but I was scared. I was trembling the first day I started my job. In 2 weeks, I thought my new boss was a complete jerk. He's already told me to pick up the phone and start making me money. Constantly whipping me around the head. Literally, it was that kind of culture. It was like, a book would hit you in the head if you're off the phone for 2 minutes. But you see, that's how I started my sales career, down in the trenches with an 80-20 commission structure pay package. The stress was unreal. The pressure was beyond boiling point. But you know what? I freaking loved it. It was very addictive. It was like a drug. And I don't know, maybe I was young and naive then, but I wanted more and more of it every day, right? I loved it. Now, if I fast forward 16 years, instead of looking at my boss now and thinking, well, an absolute jerk, I think I'll go and give him a hug now and buy him a ton of beers, and definitely buy him a nice meal and take him out, because he taught me what it is you need to be hard in this world. We are going through really hard times now. Even though I say everything seems okay, it really isn't, right? Every country in this world is going through a recession. But you know what? If you're strong enough and you've got the right tenacity and you've got the right skill set, we can all push through this. The ones that are still hanging around, letting people know they're still there and still working, are the ones that are going to come out of this strong. The ones that give up, well, we don't know where they're going to be, right? So that's what that's taught me, and that's what's helped me get through some of this lockdown and pandemic so far, even though we've got a long way to go, right? Moving on. So how do we distinguish what makes a great salesperson? Let's look at what makes a bad salesperson. A bad salesperson is someone that's not really into sales. They fear rejection. You can't roll with the punches. They find themselves clueless about the product as your customer. They love talking so much they forgot to listen. Well, that's me, right? Generally, unable to ask the right questions, have a sense of entitlement for being so good at what they do. Everyone is a prospect. You lack genuine, so they lack genuine social empathy. It comes, if push comes to shove, they'll push the client until they push back. They'll just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I've personally been personally guilty of that as well. They go by gut feel as opposed to using science and embracing technology. They focus on products instead of people. I'm sure most of us are guilty of this in sales. So yeah, that's interesting, right? And the funny thing is, I'm probably guilty of all of those things and have been in the past as well. Yet, so it's probably not the best analogy. So maybe a great salesperson is someone that is the complete opposite of all that. Maybe not, right? But let's dig a little bit deeper, okay? Next slide. Okay, let's look at some stats. I pulled these from a recent report from Sales Hacker. So there are a lot more bad, or I'd say bad, so an average to below average salespeople than there are good salespeople. We all know that, right? I mean, the numbers tell it all. Look at you've got some stats here: attaining full quota for sales reps, and then you've got the sales job tenure in general. These were taken over in the US and the UK, I believe, and also, I don't know about Australia, but more the US, in terms of job stats on the number of reps that actually achieved their full quota, right? So it's going down, whether that's because companies are growing and everything's becoming more competitive, are salespeople becoming more lazy and not so great at what they do? Maybe they don't have the tenacity, maybe they don't have the upbringing that they used to, maybe they haven't had it hard enough in the trenches, or maybe not. Maybe it's just becoming a much harder world to play in, right? As we are going through COVID at the moment. But if you look at the numbers, only 3 out of 10 companies see their sales force meet or exceed revenue targets. Roughly 70% miss out. That's nuts. So most salespeople are below average or below, are average or below rather. Meanwhile, staff turnover rates in sales are seriously high. Why is this? Why do people jump from one company to another? I remember at Oracle, I don't know if I can say this or it's public knowledge, but they went through a stage where people would jump out of Oracle, come back a year later, double their salary, jump out again, come back again, because that was the best way of increasing your salary, right? And they soon stopped that. They said you can only do that twice in your entire Oracle career, because so many people are doing it. So it's amazing the amount of people that are jumping from company to company. And what I think is happening is they're getting their numbers, they're achieving them to some extent or just below. They're getting to 6, 7, 8 months, their targets double, and then they're not able to achieve them. And then they have to go to another organization and start again. Perhaps that's the case, right? Not for everyone. It's happened to me a couple of times in my career. But look, one thing is for certain, sales is a tough nut to crack, and not everyone is meant to embrace it as a career, right? Maybe I wasn't, but I did it anyway. So look, before we can even start to understand what makes great salespeople so successful, we first need to break down the many sales roles that organizations hire for, right? And what it is required to make each person successful for that role. Furthermore, it is even more imperative that we understand the natural progression that most salespeople take throughout their sales careers, right? Let's have a look into that now. Okay, this might seem a little bit stereotypical, and some of you look at this and go, well, that's a load of rubbish because my company does it this way, and that's not how I see it. That's fine, right? This is how like I said, this is based on my experience. I see most tech companies having this structure, whether they're siloed and they have 10 or 12 different, sections in the organization, like a Thomson Reuters or an American Express or an Oracle or a Microsoft or an IBM. I see this very common. So, most people start the sales role as a BDR, which is an entry sales role, or an SDR, ISR, internal sales rep, BDM, field sales, and perhaps they move into more of a senior role for each of those ones, or maybe they go into more of a technical role, right, or become a technical sales specialist, and they're essentially doing both, which makes them probably some of the best salespeople on this planet. Okay. So look, sales specialization, of course, a rep may decide to stay as a BDR or an ISR or become specialist within this field. So it's not always a start as a BDR and move up to a BDM process, right? I know plenty of 40 to 50-year-old BDRs, that's lead generators. So that's people that I hire for my company, there's usually entry level for this type of activity that are absolute guns on the phone, but have decided not to progress with their sales ladder, right? Through the sales ladder. They want to keep doing what they're doing. They're earning a ton of money and they're good on the phone, and that's it. They don't want to do anything else. You may also become a sales technical specialist, as I've mentioned there, becoming the best at internal sales, along with having the ability to manage integration of complex demos, right? Fantastic, great salesperson. Moving on. So BDR versus SDR. So look, a BDR is generally focusing on qualifying inbound marketing, and SDR is generally focusing on qualifying outbound marketing. It's as simple as that. SDR outbound, BDR inbound, they're both entry-level roles. Now, if you see this scene from Wolf of Wall Street, actually, no, it's not, oh, maybe it's Wolf of Wall Street. I thought it was a predecessor movie. Something in Wolf of Wall Street, whatever it was. So anyway, that to me is very important as an example, because in that movie, in the very beginning, he starts off, Leonardo DiCaprio in there, Wolf of Wall Street, as the guy, as the bitch in the room. Sorry to use those terminologies. You know, as the coffee guy, whatever you want to call him. And his job is to pick up the phone, make hundreds of calls. When he gets one, he passes it over. Right? Yeah, you take the call. BDR, right? In some ways, that's kind of a very intense version of what a BDR does, right? Okay. In most cases, the role is 100% carried out over the phone with very minimal to zero minimal face-to-face meetings. Leads are qualified, nurtured, and once they're converted SQL sales qualified leads, they're passed on to internal sales reps and field sales reps, depending on how you structure your organization, right? ISR, internal sales rep. Some people get confused between ISR and BDR. In some ways, they're the same. Some companies hire an ISR that does not close deals. That is a lead generator. So that's why it gets a bit confusing, the terminology. So an internal sales rep works on the phone still. They close deals on the phones. In general, they don't really go and see customers. They do maybe occasionally. They can be hunters, account managers, or a combination of the two. And depending on the organization and industry, some ISRs are supplied a set of number of leads of marketing sources. So that could be leads from online web, from BDRs, the ones we just spoke about. They generate leads for the ISRs, digital campaigns, inquiries. You have to also understand there's different types of ISRs as well. Junior versus seasoned, for example, right? So you can start off your career maybe in a graduate role as an ISR. I met plenty of those guys in my time on a low salary, and they start to build that up. But a junior ISR would effectively have a lot less experience than a seasoned ISR, right? A seasoned ISR is someone that's going to, like I said, look in between the two. A seasoned ISR could be someone that's just been down in the trenches, you know, has worked in that kind of city state, has built up that experience. And what I covered in my introduction, they're now classed as, maybe I'm classed as a seasoned ISR and a seasoned BDM or whatever you want to call it, right? Because I've gone through that. Or is it someone that's, you know, just had 10 years of experience in the industry, still hits their number, maybe average generally, but you know, still generally hits their number, but doesn't really overachieve too much. Yeah, so to give you the exact terminology of those, a junior ISR could be a graduate that comes on board to learn the ropes and starts with basic tasks around territory management before jumping on the phone to speak to prospective clients. They may also start with managing the smaller end of town, lower dollar value products and solutions. A seasoned ISR would have at least three, these are the exact terminologies that I've researched, 3 to 5 years of solid experience working within the same or similar industry. They would have their own ability to self-manage their sales patch, map out the territory planning and that sort of stuff, as you'd expect from a seasoned rep, right? Okay. Just give me 1 second, guys. I am waiting for one more person just to join. And I just want to make sure they're on mute when they come in, which they are now. Okay. All right, let's carry on. Moving on. I don't want to spend too much time on what the terminologies of salespeople, because I believe that a lot of you will know what this is. It's just more of a recap. BDM, business development manager, field sales rep, essentially. They're also responsible for closing new business opportunities, meaning strict KPI goals, setting up meetings and territory planning, okay? Field reps are responsible for generating new revenue from their existing clients or net new prospects. Field reps can be responsible for several existing key accounts, such as T1, Tier 2 accounts, or they can be responsible for certain territories. You'll find there's different levels of experience with these guys again, or guys or girls rather. For example, you may find a junior field rep focusing on lower dollar value solutions. Let's say you're working in let's give an example of an Oracle, right? Or any tech company out there. You're selling solutions worth $10,000, cloud-based work at home VPNs. As a junior BDM. As a senior BDM, you might be selling cloud-based disaster recovery, multi-million-dollar, $500,000, whatever it is, solutions to larger tier 1, tier 2 companies, right? You've got that experience as a senior BDM to manage that territory planning, to manage those relationships and to build those relationships within those larger organizations, which take time and strategic thinking and intelligence, right? Three types of field sales reps. Hunter, BDM is responsible for hunting net new opportunities. Someone that's essentially responsible for generating new deals from net new white space clients. Okay. Now, an account manager is responsible for managing existing clients as well as upselling existing accounts for new products and services. And a hunter and account manager, you can have a combination of the two, right? They're both hunters and account managers. Okay. Both still very similar roles in a lot of ways, but the hunter is just there for net new. So whether he's going from cold or getting a lead come in that's half qualified, he's responsible for bringing in net new opportunities, whereas an account manager is responsible for upselling and maturing and upgrading out of life products and that sort of stuff for existing clients, and then the combination of the two does both of those. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's look at some of the qualities of a seasoned sales rep. Okay, now according to Harvard Business Review, a good sales rep, right, must have at least two basic qualities. What are those qualities? Well, they're known as empathy being one of them, ability to feel, okay, getting feedback from a client or prospect through empathy. Now, that's really hard to articulate, and that took me years to truly understand, okay? But the reality is, everyone on this planet needs to stop selling and stop talking about product and talk to people like they're human beings, right? Everywhere in the world, that doesn't change, whether you're in the Philippines, Singapore, the US, the UK, France, Spain, Russia, a lot of those countries that are more like China, for example, relationship focused, do rely even more on that empathy, right, as well. The ability not just to understand from a personal perspective, but also to build that relationship, and most importantly, understand where is the pain points this client has, and this potential client has, and where can you add value, right? So, be on the same page, understand that pain, and try and get on the same wavelengths before you can even continue to sell to that prospect. Okay. There's also the ability to conquer. Now, some may call that ego, male and female, doesn't matter. This is the ability to just want to need the sell. Now, I think personally, if I was to relate me as a salesperson, you can all relate yourselves to what I have the ability to conquer, right? Because I just keep going, and I'll keep going until someone smacks me in the head and says, go away. And I'll still keep going, right? Because one day they'll stand up and go, Jesus, you just don't stop. All right, I'm doing it. I love it. I love your tenacity. I love it. Or they'll raise a complaint with me. I don't know. I'm just joking. But, just having that ability to conquer is really important. You've got to be hungry. If you don't like your job, it doesn't matter. But freaking be hungry about getting money to buy a house and invest for your future and have money for your kids, right? Just be hungry, and it helps to be focused, and it helps to but not everyone does love their job. That's the reality behind it. I mean, I excuse my French, I hate my job most days, but I love my job most days as well, right? It's a love-hate relationship, and it is what it is. But have the ability to feel, have empathy, and the ability to conquer. But is that enough, right? Both of these qualities covered together will enable you to be more effective. But is that really enough to be a great salesperson, right? I mean, maybe that's some of the basics. Or is it maybe looking at live CV? How much time have they spent in the trenches? And let's say in the army, right? Some of the best salespeople I know and I've hired haven't said that they haven't spent 10 years working for an SAP or an IBM. They spent 5 or 6 years working for a recruitment company and working in different places around the world. They've traveled, and they've been out there. They've been out in the world. They're experienced. They have street knowledge. I want street knowledge from hiring someone. I don't want someone that comes in for a 9-to-5 job. I don't expect someone to work their absolute arse off. I want them to want it. Then for them, it's not feeling that they have to spend an extra hour after work or whatever it may be. Maybe they've come from a poor background, right? Some of the best people I've seen out there, they come from a poor background. They've worked their way out. They've gained street smarts. No, they set up a business. They've done whatever it is, but they're still very humble. That's really, really important. They're humble, and they're able to, I guess, get into the minds of individuals and have those conversations. Back in, as an example, London 16 years ago, it was a sink or swim. If I did not make my company money, I wasn't able to pay my rent or buy food. I was back in with mum, and that's I don't want to do that. That would drive me crazy. Yeah, it was hardcore, and it taught me the value of working hard and doing whatever it takes to succeed, right? So go back to basics, stay humble, as I've mentioned before. What does that even mean? Well, at some point, maybe your field reps were once BDRs or ISR reps, right? And had their head deep in the trenches, making 80 plus cold calls a day and spending hours updating the CRM with the correct details. Fantastic. Now that your reps have made it, they're enjoying their face-to-face meetings. They're field reps now, right? Why the hell are they going to spend hours updating the admin and spend time making cold calls? That's not their job. No, that's the responsibility of the field reps, of the BDRs and the ISRs. They're not going to go back to that. Tut, tut, tut. At the end of the day, is that right? Is that what makes a BDR, the difference between a great salesperson and a bad salesperson? Someone that has the willingness to go back and roll up their sleeves and go, I'm going to make 10 cold calls today. And I've got 5 meetings in the afternoon, but I'm still going to make 10 cold calls because I think it's really important to expand my territory. And I'm going to call some companies that we haven't targeted before. And those leads that came to the BDR weren't that great. You see what I mean? So, yeah, that could be something to consider as well. Okay. But let me make one thing crystal clear. Your reps should be picking up the phone regardless of how good they are, right? Regardless of how many leads that come in. They should be picking up the phone and making just 1 or 2 cold calls a day or 5 calls a week to new companies, right? Even if it's just to have a bit of a laugh and then learn something new, right? Or they want to get a new partner on board if you're an IT reseller, for example, or they want to build up a network of people. Why not call a CEO and just talk to them about, whatever you want to talk to them about, your experience if you're a business owner or what you are and talk about them and talk about their company and talk about their industry and their stats and write an article for them and let them become your mentor, right? Doesn't matter. Just you need to get that. You need to make sure you're actively making calls, right? And actively reaching out and developing yourself personally and professionally all the time, even if it's very minimal, right? I'm not expecting everyone to go out there and, create their own websites and stuff like that. It's just, your field reps need to be just not doing the status quo, which is their standard KPIs, right? They need to be doing a lot more, especially in today's pandemic, right? It's just they just have to. Okay, professional sales experience. Something else I guess we can look at as one of the attributes of qualities of a seasoned field reps. We need to also explore the employee's professional work history. I get it, including previous roles, KPI management, training, and their journey. You probably notice I haven't focused so much on that because that's more of a common sense attribute, in my opinion. But their journey into sales, what brought them here, where they worked. Have they spent 10 years working for finance, 10 years working in IT? What have they done? Who have they trained, et cetera, et cetera? What products have they worked with? Who have they sold to? And that can be everything from geographic locations, London, New York, as a broker or a lead gen specialist. Are they likely to have been exposed to a cutthroat culture and that sort of stuff? Okay, moving on. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to pause for 2 seconds, guys. Okay. All right, we're back on. Okay. Turning your field sales reps into highly strategic machines. What do I mean by that? Okay. What I want to do from this session, my goal is to just leave you with some points on what it is, that you need to do to say to your field reps, to your sales team, what tips can you give them just to help them understand the importance of just why they need to be a little bit more productive or make more calls, or why it is important they need to hit their numbers. You need to make it about them, not about you or your company. Things are very different these days. For me, I would personally just see it as, I need to do this. I need to hit my number because my job's at risk. But people these days don't see it that way, right? So now that we know the key differences between the types of salespeople and their levels of experience, we now need to determine what you as a business leader can do to help create highly effective field salespeople. So what can you do and say to your team to help them out, right? Okay, really important as leaders out there. Now, there's this terminology, and if anyone knows a guy called Tony Hughes, really great, I guess call him a sales wizard if you want to call him that. He wrote a book called First, he rewrote the Joshua principle, and then he wrote combo prospecting. But he talks about the silent sales floor, right? When you walk through, you look at the Wolf of Wall Street. If you were to walk through there 20 years ago, it'd just be like swearing and calling, and it would just be so loud. It would be above the decibel, probably legal level these days, right? Whereas when you walk through a sales floor now, no one's making any bloody calls. They're all sitting there on, oh, I've got to send an email message to this person. Oh, I've got to write this email out. No, why don't you just pick up the phone and call them? And that's the problem these days. Even the BDRs of the world that are supposed to be making the 50, 60, 70 plus phone calls, 100 calls even, are not making that many calls because they're losing the ability, that they're losing that touch. So you need to go to your sales team, right? And you need to tell them to make cold calls, right? But not just to rely on inbound leads. Maybe you don't have a BDR team. Maybe your inbound web inquiries have dried up since COVID-19. Great, that's fine. Get your sales team to pick up the phone and make 10 more cold calls a day, right? And if just try different things, right? Combine that with digital. That's fine. I understand digital is really important. Together, they are amazing. But you can't have digital without the phone, right? You've got to have digital and the phone together. Your salespeople still need to pick up the phone. So get your reps in some sort of training and help them to understand why that's important for them to still get out there. And I'll tell you why you can tell them why it's important. If they make 10, let's say they make 5 to 10 cold calls a week extra, they're already above everyone else because no other bugger's doing it, right? I promise you, there are hardly any people now making those types of cold calls like they used to. Get them to do it and they'll already stand above everyone else, okay? So give your sales rep the training they need. Like I said, these are difficult times and your field reps will, hate to say it, and I've been told this myself, but some of them need to get off their high horses and go back to some of the base activities that they were so successful with in the first place when they started their sales career, right? Second, territory management. Expecting your marketing team to provide all the qualified prospect leads required to help your field reps to achieve their KPI. Man, that's madness. You can't, as a field rep, you're not taking responsibility. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to receive leads from everywhere, you're like, woohoo, I've hit my number from all the leads that came from my BDR and from the web inquiries and from referrals, that's great. That won't last forever, and some of your field reps might have actually noticed now that's drying up, right? So it's time to look at other avenues and other channels. And again, one of those is picking up the phone, do your own territory management, write your own articles, right? Become responsibility for, if you're an employee, become responsible for your number by treating it like your own business. If I treated some of my roles like I'm treating it in my own company now, I'd have made a ton more money, but the reality is I didn't because, I was still getting my salary every month, right? Whereas now if I don't work my ass off and get money in, I don't feed myself. I don't pay my bills. It's a struggle, right? So yes, where was I going with this? As salespeople, you need to be responsible. Your salespeople need to be responsible for achieving their numbers. It's as simple as that. And, if they've got to work an extra couple of hours a day for a month, do it. You do whatever it takes, right? And if you've done everything, you put your foot down and nothing's worked, then there might be a problem with what you're selling, right? Fair enough. But if you haven't gone and reached out, tried different things, gone into different territories, tried different industries, and you don't have to go with what your boss is saying. Obviously, your brand, if you're with a big company, you've got to go with the branding and everything. There's no issues with you, going outside of where you should be going, outside of and experimenting, right? And if you shouldn't be doing it, you can talk to your boss and your managers about it. But this is sort of stuff you need to teach your team, right? Now, what are they? If you're the owner of the business or you're a field director and you're going, why aren't my field team hitting my number? Sit with them, observe them, right? Do a plan with them, right? And see where they're failing. And maybe you can teach them some of your tricks, right? Other thing is sales tools, guys. Sales tools. I'm going to say it again and again. Sales tools, sales tools, sales tools. There are so many out there now. We have no excuse but to be at least partly successful. We have great CRMs. Your company has to have a CRM. There's no excuse for it. One person, 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000. I don't care. You need a CRM. And all your notes need to go into it, right? It just has to. No matter, you make a phone call and they had a terrible conversation. They hated you on the phone. They wanted to throw you off the cliff because they thought it was the worst cold call you've ever made, right? Who cares? Put it in the notes. Maybe don't document it like that, but just say you had a call, you wasn't too happy. Next time you call them up, are you going to know, oh, yeah, this guy, okay, all right, I'm going to try something a little bit different now. Put your notes in the CRM, right? I can't count the number of times before when I didn't do this. And I'd have a prospect that I'd be speaking with, and he told me he wasn't interested. I was like, nah, let's leave it. He's not interested. 3 months later, he comes back to me and says, hey, can we start talking again? And I have no notes, right? Not good enough, right? Whereas now that I'm running my own company and I put my own notes in the CRM, I get my team to do that as well. If I get someone call me up out of the blue, straight in the CRM, boom. Oh, yes, Mr. Michael. Yeah, we did speak about that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, you were targeting this particular. Okay, this is what you guys do, specializations in VPN, whatever it may be, right? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you need to record notes in your CRM, and you need to use sales tools. LinkedIn Navigator, it's 100 Australian dollars or 70, 60 USD a month. Get it for your team, right? Just get it. In fact, I'll give you a little tip. Contact LinkedIn. Tell them right now, if you're struggling as a business, right? Because I was, tell them you're struggling as a business. They'll give you 2 to 3 months of free credit. No one knows that, right? Little tip from me. If you just contact them and say you're struggling, just have some ethics on this, that you are genuinely struggling. Cash flow is hard at the moment, like I was a couple of months ago. Tell them, and and you can do that with a lot of those providers out there, and they'll give you a couple of months to 3 months of free credit. Okay, funny that, but yeah, use it. Don't have not an excuse that you can't afford to use it or whatever it is to not use it. Get LinkedIn Navigator. Get LinkedIn Sales, whatever it is. Don't go with the free version of LinkedIn. You just can't survive. All right. The other tools to get, I think there's a tool called Lucia. Lucia is a very great tool for finding phone numbers. It's not cheap. Again, Lucia, were able to help me with a month free worth of credit during these hard times, but I've been using them for over 2.5 years. They're fantastic. Links in with LinkedIn Navigator, and it has a 50-50 rate of finding a mobile phone number for someone. And you don't have to use the credit for everyone because it will give you a preview. Highly recommend that. I've got through to some of the top CEOs on this planet, tier 1 companies, because their mobile phone numbers in there. And when I call them, you can imagine their face. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the look on their faces to see why is this guy calling me, right? How the hell did this guy get my number? Because I was one of the only ones that spent 50 cents on getting their phone number and calling them, right? Having the balls to call them, number one, and 2, paying for a tool, and 3, using a credit costing 50 cents to go and call, which most people wouldn't do, right? Most people over in whatever parts of the world, especially the B2C people, wouldn't go those lengths to call that person. Next. Okay, so just before we wrap up and we go into Q&A, we have finished a little bit earlier than I thought we would. Here are some additional tips that I want to provide you and that you can provide your team. Know your customer, okay? Your team, your field sales reps have to know your customer. What makes them tick? Right? What are their pains? What pains is it that they're experiencing that your solution is going to solve? And I'm not just talking about features and benefits. We don't care about that. What is it that your solution is going to help solve in the market, right? And how big of a pain is that at the moment for these types of companies? For example, right? What I found out over the last few months is a lot of government companies are struggling, or they were struggling rather, with the whole work from home drive. They just didn't have the infrastructure. I've been getting through the switchboards a couple of months back when this pandemic started and lockdown, and they're not even able to transfer me to people. Like, what is that? So sorry, I'm literally like, you're working from home. Okay, that's great. You're the receptionist, and you're just taking calls so you become a virtual assistant, right? Because they don't have a system in place that allows them to transfer calls remotely, right? How mad is that? But that's because they weren't ready for it, right? Like most, a lot of companies out there in the world, including myself, we had 24 hours to plan to get everyone working from home, but we did it. So that's an opportunity there, right? So that opportunity is to help government companies with getting people working from home, and lots of companies made a ton of money doing that over the last few months, like Microsoft and others, right? You see, there were the pain points for government back then was quite big, and they just opened up the door for cloud-based technologies and for other cloud providers to come in. Right, building effective target lists. You really need to build your own target lists or expand on your target list that you've been given from marketing to be successful. So you need to go and research, find companies that aren't being targeted. If you've been given a territory patch, ask, as a sales leader, perhaps see if you can get your, as a sales leader, perhaps give your reps a bit more freedom. Find out if they can go and reach out to accounts outside of their territory. If they're stuck with accounts in their territory, ask them to deep dive into those accounts and find other contacts they may have not already spoken with, right? Really important, but they need to, if they've got free reign on a particular geographic and industry, they've got to build up a target list, and they've got to do the research, and they've got to make sure that's done properly. And overcoming cold calling fears. Pick up the phone, guys. Don't be scared. Pick up the phone, cold call. Have 100 terrible cold calls, and I guarantee you, you'll start having better cold calls. All right, just do it for fun. Don't call them cold calls. Go on LinkedIn Navigator, find someone that you want to sell to. Right, look at the CEO, CTO, and look at what he's been up to. Look what he's talking about. Research what he's talking about, and then call him up and say, "Hey, I just saw something that you were blogging about on LinkedIn. And I thought it was fantastic." And most times you'll probably go, "Oh, okay, okay," and he'll give you 30 seconds because you've mentioned him and what he's looking at. By the way, did you know, Mark? I also looked online and found out that this relates to this and this particular cloud-based tool that everyone's talking about. That industry is going to grow 25% over the next 10 years. That actually goes really well what you were talking about, Mark. And Mark's going to go, wow, yeah, I know, I agree. I think that's really good. And then eventually at some point, Mark's going to go, sorry, so what is the call about? Boom. You've broken the ice. There you go. That's one of Tony Hughes' big things about combo prospecting and not selling, right? So imagine that, right? Instead of calling up and going, hi, my name's Mark, and I sell, really great VPNs that help companies to work from home and stop twin tunneling because they stop your employees from hacking your computers and getting viruses on there. And then it's like, oh mate, I just had 20 cold calls, like, let's go away. Whereas imagine I'm Mark and I've just posted something on LinkedIn, an article on the fears of working from home. Oh, it's scary, the security issues and that sort of stuff. Now, imagine I get a call from someone from a VPN company that says, yeah, I just saw your article. I noticed that you've got some you've got some fears in this space and went into a bit more detail about what I read in his article and read I did some additional research, and then I'm going to go smart. Wow, I'm really scared because I'm worried about VPN tunneling. I'm worried about all this stuff. Oh, okay, great. And I'm going to go, so tell me what you do, mate. You've called me up, told me about what I'm looking at. I'm very impressed. What do you do? And then he's going to tell me about what he does as a company, and I'm going to go, okay, I want this guy to I want to buy from this guy. This guy's taking interest, right? See the difference, right? Not hard. But your sales team need to be doing that, right? You're paying them a salary every month. You're giving them commission. Very important. Making every call count. Make every call count if you can. Get something out of it. If someone tells you to bugger off and they want to throw you off a cliff, say thank them for their time and can I just ask why you feel like you want to throw me off a cliff? And then and you won't get that, but if you do get the odd one, just ask. Someone's not interested. Oh, you're not interested? Can I call you in 3 months? Okay. Just get as much as you can out of every call, right? Really, really important. Look, guys, we're going to wrap this up shortly. Okay. So just moving on to my next and one of my final slides. I'm actually going to be conducting one-day training programs. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do this yet. I've got the material together. I've just got to work out how I'm going to do this. But I've got 10 slots, probably 5 to 10 slots a month, where I can, probably more like 7, where I can conduct consulting training. And that probably won't be one day. It'll probably be training that'll be done over two or 3 days, still up into 2-hour blocks, where I talk to your team and I talk to your field reps. I find out the key challenges and what they need help with. I can write a few scripts for them. Like I said, there's a bit of a package to it, but if anyone is interested, without blabbering onto too much detail, please reach out to me. Send me an email. I'll be more than happy to go into that further with you and see if we can help you guys out. All right. So let's wrap up the session. So look, thank you everyone for your attendance today. I hope it was useful, and I appreciate you all donating to charity. I'll be sending that payment off the second Eventbrite, pass those payments over to me. Really good. It really helps people out in need. Now, in conclusion, let's look at what makes a great salesperson. Okay, let's wrap it up really quickly, right? For all of you that maybe weren't paying attention. Okay, level of tenure. Okay, we've covered that. So these are some of the basic traits. Skill set, ability to listen and understand, okay? The right work ethics and attitude. Fantastic. Ability to feel, also known as empathy. Getting feedback from a client or prospect for empathy, as I mentioned before. Ability to conquer, ego, male or female, doesn't matter, okay? The need to want to sell or get, the need to want to sell, right? To have that hungerness. Now, let's look at some of the hidden and hard measures that I want you to teach your team. And that is, picking up the phone to generate your own pipeline, the ability to create their own territory plan, the ability to set goals and achieve them and be responsible, take bloody ownership for them, right? They're their goals. Being down in the trenches, right? This is something more of a life kind of experience. How do you measure someone if someone's been in Afghanistan for 10 years and had a leg blown off and lost 3 of their mates, but came out of it nothing can be as worse as that. I'm now going to work my ass off for the next 30 years of my life and nothing's going to bug me. I'll tell you a story behind that. My granddad was, he was in World War II. He passed away not too long ago now, but he he was caught and he was taken to the concentration camps in, I believe it was Singapore. He was Amsterdam, Dutch, in Java. Now, he had such a horrific experience there that he did not, first he didn't speak about it for a long, long time, right? I mean, no, I'm not saying this is a good example, but my example is he had such a hard time there with starvation, seeing his family members pass, and God knows what else happened in there, that for the rest of his life, from what I'm hearing from my parents, from the time that I knew him for 30 years, 35 years, he never complained once in his life. He worked as hard as he did. He very rarely took a sick day off. He did like 15, 16 hour days. And you know what? This guy never complained once. He probably wanted to complain. He had the worst back pain he'd ever had in his life. He had a bad back, and severely bad back, actually. Had a really bad injury for many years. But he got on with life because I think he was just happy to be alive. So maybe someone that's been in the trenches and has worked their way up and just has that, skin, that some people call it thick skin. Other people just call it, just being somewhere where it's been so hard that they're able to sustain themselves in those harder environments, right? Now, lastly, using sales tools to your full advantage, right? Really, really important. Take advantage of your CRM. Salespeople that use sales tools and LinkedIn Navigator and that sort of stuff are going to be more successful, okay? All right, that's enough of me blabbering on. I hope this session was helpful. We're going to jump into Q&A now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the chat. I should have, covered this before, but I'm going to try. Give me a second to open up the chat box. Give me a second. If it decides to open up. Okay. Now, if anyone's got any questions, please message me, and I can take you off mute, and we can go from there. All right.
Matt, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Oh, Justin, yes. Did I unmute you, or did you unmute?
No, I muted myself.
Oh, good. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, Justin, go ahead.
Mate, is it possible to grab the recording of this?
Of course.
A copy of the recording.
100%. I'll send that all to you at the end of the session. It'll be before the end of the week, sorry. So by tomorrow, along with a copy of my ebook if you haven't got it already.
Right.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it was extremely informative and exactly what I was looking for.
Fantastic. Really good to hear. All right. I'll meet you again, Justin. And we got James. How many names? Got a message from James. How many names should I get on a list before starting to call? That's a really good. I'm gonna unmute you, James, but you don't have to talk if you don't want to. I'll leave that up to you. Can you hear me, James?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, good. So, okay, how many names should I get on a list before starting a call? Really interesting point. I like to start with at least for enough for the day of calling and enough for the next day. So I start with about 60, 70. Generally before I start calling, but it depends how much time, depends on your role, depends on how much time you have to prepare. But my philosophy is have enough for the day, have enough for the next day. So if that means I spend the morning and afternoon calling and I give myself 2 hours to get enough data for the next day, that's fine. So 50 to 60 to 70 is generally what I like to start with. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. I guess one other question. You mentioned Lucia.
Yes.
So a lot of the time, I'm ending up with a desk number, right? And getting stuck on the, receptionist trying to explain what you are and why you want to call.
Yeah.
How do you find, I guess, getting through a desk number versus mobile numbers? And
yeah, good question. Yeah, no, desk numbers are a pain, especially like I said, with people working from home. I'm noticing 50% rate of them saying, "Oh, sorry, we can't transfer the call," and then you ask for the mobile number. So the most effective way is, direct landlines are a bit of a pain now as well because they're not actually. It depends on their role. If they're below a CTO executive level, then the likelihood is their landline is routed to their mobile or it's routed to their soft phone on their computer. But the best way to reach people right now, hands down, executives 100%, is on the mobile. So using Lucia is going to help you find mobile phone numbers. And there's more mobile phone numbers in there than you'd expect. A lot of people don't realize. So I'd highly recommend. It's free for 5 credits. And if you reach out to them, I think they give you like an additional 10 or 15 credits, but don't vouch me on that. You need mobile phone numbers at the moment is my personal. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, definitely. And so Lucia, it's pretty successful at getting mobile numbers.
Yeah, it's like got a 50-50 hit rate. So you don't have to use a credit before you get the number. So you got this little thing and it integrates into Lucia. It pops up and it will say, yeah, there's a mobile phone number available and an email. And if you want to see them, you have to use one of your credits. Okay. So then you click on that and you'll get a mobile phone number. And then even then there's still a chance. Let's say it's 70% chance that mobile number will work, right? But there's a 30% chance it could be an old mobile phone number and it's changed, right? But that's part of it, right? But that's the best I found out there, right? Lucia.co. I'd definitely check it out. Give it a run.
Yeah, thanks very much.
No worries.
I was
right.
also going to jump in there and say is that to James, usually I find is that if I've got a vendor portfolio of say 15, 20 vendors that I work with, and I've identified say 20 accounts or whatever, usually I go around to all of those vendors and say, hey, have you worked with these? You got contact details? And usually I'm able to snap a direct line or a mobile off that.
Cool. Yep. Thanks very much.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you, Justin. All right, Mark, I'm going to mute you again. You don't have to talk, but I will unmute you if you want to jump in and say, or maybe you can unmute yourself because I can't seem to unmute you. Okay, my second to last slide. What was the phone tools? Find a name. What bullet points would you have on this slide? Example, LinkedIn Phone Finder. Phone tools. What do you mean by phone tools, Mark? I can try to unmute you, but I can't.
Oh, you've answered my question. I found it, Mark. It was Lucia. I hadn't heard of that one before, but I've picked up the spelling now.
Oh, Lucia. Yeah, sorry, mate. Okay, good. All right, cool. Any other questions or you're good?
Oh, you mentioned a number of things where you talked to that slide, just as a summary. One was LinkedIn, one was Lucia. Just to recap some of those other points on that second last slide that you spoke to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I keep forgetting I don't have the. It was the recap, wasn't it? Was it in conclude? Hold on.
Your second or third last slide, one before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's probably okay. The silent sales floor. Oh, sales tools. Yeah, that was more of me. Yeah. So you wanted to know
summary of ones, please.
Summary. Yeah. Well, you've got sales. You've got LinkedIn Navigator, Lucia. You've got Hoovers, you've got LinkedIn Navigator and also LinkedIn Sales. So you don't have to go with LinkedIn Navigator. You've got two different or you've got LinkedIn Recruiter as well, but you want to go with a premium version of LinkedIn is my recommendation. You've got CRMs, whole bunch of different CRMs. You've got Salesforce. I like HubSpot. I use HubSpot personally because I'm a smaller business. HubSpot. Yeah, it's pretty good. Or Pipedrive. It's very similar. Yeah.
No, that's great. Lucia was a good pickup for me, so thanks for that.
No worries. Okay, so guys, hold on 1 second. Let me just Zoom is amazing. It has a tendency to throw the questions off. Okay, John, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, yeah, you can unmute yourself. So I was able to unmute you.
I'm based in the Philippines, and I was just wondering if sales practices vary from country to country. Like you were mentioning about getting the phone numbers of the higher ups, but sometimes those higher ups don't also mind us. And when it comes to CRM, would you know which ones are effective in which country?
No, that's a good question. It really varies. I think to answer your first question on, let me have a think. Look, from country to country, yes, selling techniques do vary. I'll give you an example. My wife, she's a real estate agent in the Philippines, right? I'm, of course, living in the Philippines right now. I'm calling out of my home office in Makati. So, yeah, it differs very, very much, right? And I'm sort of trying to understand what works in the Philippines to what works in the Western world. In the Philippines, there's a lot more talking and a lot more meetings than there are needed in Australia. In the Philippines, it takes a long time to build trust, right? Where in the Western world, and if you look at someone like Australia, that trust is built. People generally have a trust. There's, of course, there's things that go on in Australia that aren't ethical, but generally Australia is quite a trustworthy place. Whereas in the Philippines, I mean, I know my wife's probably had taken 10 to 20 meetings to do one sale on a property, right? So that's a difference there. And it's hard to sort of articulate, but yes, the selling techniques vary, but the concept's the same. Relationship building and all that other stuff, trying not to sell, just to talk to the person. And I've personally reached out to senior executives in the Philippines for companies like PLDT Cold, and I've spoken to them like I've spoken to my clients or prospects in Australia or the UK, and they've taken it the same way, right? So yeah, you can combine the same techniques anywhere. You just have to be wary of the culture. And in terms of CRM, what would I recommend? It's not really country basis. I would say HubSpot because it's free up until a certain point, and Pipedrive. But I would recommend HubSpot just because you can do a ton of stuff with it. But if your business starts to expand to 10, 20 people, then yeah, it gets a little bit more expensive. But it's free up to a certain point. All right.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, John.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt. It's Chris Ashford from Quirks. How are you? Sorry to cut in.
That's right.
I'm just driving and I'm listening to it as I drive and I can't get the chat thing, so I thought I'd just jump in.
That's okay.
Mate, great session. I'm taking a lot away from it, so I thank you for that. One of the questions I have is talking about cold calling. How do you, or your experience with dealing with that initial rejection, and just say you're getting that rejection a few times over and over, how do you deal with that and use it as a positive tool?
That's a really good question. I love that. That's brilliant. How do you use it as a positive tool? For me, I've been thrown down on the ground so many times it doesn't bug me anymore. But how do you use it as a positive? So, like I said in the presentation, every call that I make, I want to get something out of it. So if someone tells me I'm not interested, I want to know why they're not interested. Hey, look, John, I appreciate you're not interested. Or is now a bad time? Can I give you a call another time? Why are you not interested? Are you using something else? So try and get something out of that call. But if you're sort of talking about the motivation of picking up the phone again, talking about it after helps. So if I have what I used to do when I was making lots of, well, I still do when I was sort of in the ranks of making cold calls for a company, I would talk about it with my colleagues and I'd say, hey, that cold call I had, that was really funny. She basically just told me to, F off or whatever it was, or, it was really horrible. She's like shouted at me, or what happened there? That was really funny. Or I try and make it fun, right? So try and if there's no one there to talk to, right? Because we're all working from home, try and analyze it in your head. And if someone was rude, just say, everyone has a bad day. You never know what happened to that person. He might have found out his father had cancer or something. You just don't know, right? So try and make every call count, and try and when you finish the call, have a quick analyze session in your head and analyze your thoughts. What actually happened there? Was it me? Did I say something out? Was I angry? Did I sound like a salesperson? Question yourself. So that's okay. And then find out where you may have gone wrong, but also accept the fact that it may have just been the person having a bad day and he had 10 other calls before you, and then just get on with it and pick up the phone and start again. That's it. Does that help?
That's great. Yeah, mate, it does. It does. Look, it's one of the things that, I'm sort of struggling with what I'm trying to do, but look, it's just one of those things, I guess. But what you said there pretty much sort of sums it up. And again, mate, a great session, and thanks again. I've taken a lot out of it.
No worries. Okay, Chris, thank you. John, do you want to jump? John Glover, you want to jump on now? Sorry, mate. I'm going to try.
No problem, mate. No problem. Right. I've asked very strong. I've got the other thing now. I found that Lucia.co. I presume that's the one, the HT.
That's it, yeah.
The thing. I just want to know, because obviously with there's two areas that I get a little concerned. One is marketing companies saying they can do certain marketing and they can't. Mm-hmm. And then there's the salesperson who's very good at selling themselves, but aren't that good at doing the job. So is there any tips for the interview or even the first month? Because you spend a lot of time with someone before you think it's just not working.
No, 100%. And sometimes it's really hard. And for me personally, what I do, I very rarely let staff go because I've got the opportunity. I'll do 3 or 4 cold calls, what I like to call role plays with my BDRs on the phone. So if I'm hiring a BDR, then I'm going to be spending most of the time making cold calls. I'll give them a scenario that they're familiar with and something that maybe I struggle with. So for me, I want them to sell me a telco plan here in the Philippines, like a business-to-business telco plan, because I know how bad the telcos are here. We use an overseas one, so we don't ever have any issues. But I try and challenge them on the interviews, so I want to see how they react. There's no right or wrong answer. I don't want them to sell me something. I want them to have a conversation with me. So yeah, mate, it's actually a very difficult one. What I've seen in interviews, John, is I've seen some tech companies actually do full-on role play. So, for example, if you're hiring a field rep, you get them in the office and you create a scenario for them so that you create this whole you know, like we've done over the phone together, John. So you give them a scenario where they've got to try and convince you to sign up to their, you know, to their recruitment, not recruitment, sorry, rather to their consulting services around consultants, right, and contracting, right. So that's kind of, you know, or around hiring visas. So that's what I would do. I would create a scenario, and I would ask them to spend a bit of time researching, and then I'd get them to come in the office as if they were meeting you to sell you and get them to do a role play. That's how I would do it. Is that something you've tried, or is that something that's
No, just I was only interested in I've always been interested in how you do a tester. I like the idea of doing a scenario. I can do it on some other stuff, but it's very hard with the sales side of things, because sometimes you just got to go with it and see what's going on. But thanks for that, and thanks for the session.
No worries, Don. Yeah, no, it's a hard one, mate, and it's one my everyone I've spoken to in the world, mentors. There's things that you can do to prepare, but the thing I think you can test someone if they have the ability to sell, and you're going to hire someone that has that ability to do the job. But what you can't test is the attitude and the tenacity, and then that willingness where someone goes, oh, I want to leave after a month because I want to get some more money somewhere else, right? That's really hard. That I haven't worked. If you work that out, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
All right. If no one else has got any more questions, if anyone else does, please jump on the next 30 seconds or so. Otherwise, I'll start wrapping it up. So I'll just give it. What are we now? We're not in a rush or anything, but I notice people might need to head off. So it's 7:30. No, it's not. That's over here. 9:39. So we'll give it 30 more seconds from now, and if there's no more questions, I'll wrap up the session. All right.